There are a lot of different brands out there when it comes to Dremels, and which is the best for dog nails? Well, I'm going to go over the different and most popular Dremels, what their rotations per minute are, as well as their other features, and tell you if that's in a safe range for home use. And don't worry, professionals out there, because I have a recommendation for you as well. So first up, we have the most popular choice for pet owners, and it is called the Paw Control Nail Grinder by the brand Dremel. It is a cordless grinder, which is pretty important in my opinion, and just throughout my experience. I find cords tend to get in the way, they make it harder to hold at certain angles, and it just can be more of a hassle than you think they would be. A lot of the time, cordless options tend to be less powerful than their corded counterparts, which isn't as much of a fault as you might think. For starters, they are often quieter, which is great, especially if you're working with a reactive dog to noises. And because they have less power, it leaves a lot of room for error, which is good because you got to be careful with hair and getting it caught in it. And the corded options, because they're so powerful, if you catch your hair, the dog's hair, or anything like that, you can really do some damage. If they get a tail, you can actually break bones in the tail. So I would just err on the side of caution in terms of how much power you want in your unit. And this is also going to come up when we talk about the rotations as well and why it's better to use less. In fact, you know what? Let's just get right into it and we're going to talk about the rotations. Now, this is just what it sounds like. It is how many rotations per minute does the Dremel bit make. So bear in mind, this is going to change depending on what setting that you have it on. And this particular tool has a sliding button with different speeds, and it goes from 1 up to 4. So for setting 1, you're looking at about 8,000 rotations per minute, which is really a good choice because up to 10,000 is ideal for home use. You really don't want to exceed that too much, especially at home with your pet's nails, because this is when it creates a lot more heat, and this can be quite uncomfortable for your pets, and this could be contributing to why they do not like the Dremel usage. And think about it, if you've seen any of my other videos where I advocate for clipping before grinding so that you're taking up all that excess so you're not grinding it all down because that takes time and it can be uncomfortable for pets. Now, certain pets are going to tolerate one or the other and not both, and that's okay too. But if you can do that, then just think about the heat on the quick, because the closer you are to the quick, the more uncomfortable it is. So if you're setting it at a higher speed setting and it's creating a lot of heat and you've already clipped the nails down and it's super close to the quick already, your dog's probably not going to like it. So just go low, go slow. Now here's an exemption to that. I tend to use a higher level, but that's because I'm quick. I do so many nails in so many days that I just have a lot of experience. So I can quickly tap it and know exactly where to stop and start. So using a higher setting for me, I'm going to get through more of those nails before it heats up. So higher speeds are probably just going to be more practical for somebody who's more precise and quicker, like a professional. And I am saving a professional quality Dremel for the end so that you have a choice in here as well. And this one is actually my personal favorite that I use every day and I've owned for years, so it comes highly recommended from myself. But let's keep talking about this particular Dremel. So we've already touched on level 1's RPMs, rotations per minute. Let's get into the other levels. So level 2 is about 14,000 RPM, level 3 is 21,000, and level 4 is 25,000 RPM. So I don't know if I would go that high. That's pretty substantial. Just be careful with it. But if you are interested in this one, it is currently priced on Amazon for $58.12, US dollars, that is. And that's what I would consider a pretty mid-range price for a Dremel. Not one that's pro, but one that's more aimed toward pet parents. And I have to note, that's for the standard kit price. They do have an additional kit that comes with extra sanding bits at obviously an additional cost. It is rechargeable, so that's a huge plus in some respects, unless you forget to plug it in, and then you might be cursing me for saying that. But it should hold a charge for 3 hours, so that should be plenty. Its housing is coated in a rubber material, which makes it really easy to grip and comfortable. So that's really important to keep in mind, and it looks really sturdy as well. Let's move on to another great choice for pet parents, and it's very budget friendly. And this one is the Oster Gentle Paws Nail Grinder. Now, off the hop, I have to say Oster is a great brand. It's really recognizable in the grooming industry, so it's something that's definitely not some unknown product or unknown brand that has no backing by professionals that's just kind of listed on Amazon. It's quality, that's for sure. This grinder does have 2 speed settings, but the low setting gets you 10,000 RPMs and the high is 20,000. So that low speed is actually right at the top speed that you would want for your pet without creating the additional heat. They said 10,000 is the limit, and that low speed is the limit. But again, there's less options for power with this one, so I mean, you gotta weigh out what you think you would like. I don't know if you would want extra settings for certain circumstances, but this one does have 2 compared to the first one, which had 4. And at the top speeds, they are about a 5,000 RPM difference. Now, when I went through all the reviews, I did notice that a lot of people did say that this one can be louder. It has the tendency at top speed to really create a lot more noise than especially the first one we looked at. So if you have a pet who's sensitive to noise, you may want to consider the Dremel brand over this one. It does have a higher decibel rate for the noise created by it. So here's another difference. This one does use batteries, 4 double A's to be exact, which, as a side note, is not included. So if you are purchasing this one, make sure you have some batteries on hand. The casing on this one is simply a plastic housing, and it can be slippery in comparison with the Dremel brand one. So quality in that sense, I would say, is lesser, but it does come with a lesser price, and it is only $20.99 US approximately. The final grinder on my list for pet parents is the cheapest on the list, and it's actually the best for black nails. And that's because it has an automatic LED light that turns on when in use, which is super practical and helpful. Even with clear or white nails, additional light is always a plus. The Furminator brand nail grinder has 2 speed settings as well. On the low setting, it nets a speed of 8,000 RPMs, and on level 2, its high speed is about 12,000 RPMs. So not too bad, and it's the same as the Dremel brand on the lowest level. And it is the same as the Oster in terms of the power source, because it does also require 4 double A's to work. Its housing is a very similar quality to the Oster as well, a smooth plastic housing, so keep that in mind. Now, as I mentioned, it is the cheapest option, and it is a modest $18.79 US on Amazon.com currently. So things to keep in mind with grinders like these. Dogs with long or really thick nails, such as some large breeds, will require a lot more time and effort with grinders of these varieties to get them nice and short. Since if you press too hard, it's going to be likely to stop. Now, as I said, you have the option of clipping the dog's nails with nail clippers before you grind, which obviously alleviates that problem. But if that's not an option, then you just need to lightly keep it pressed against the bit to get the job done. It's going to take a bit, but just light pressure if it's coming to a stop when you're pressing on it. That means you're pressing too hard. Another thing of note is there is a plastic sheath that goes around the outside of the grinder on all of these models. And if you do not like that, they are all removable, because if you didn't remove them, then you wouldn't be able to change the bits in your grinder. So they do all come off. But it is a safety feature. So not only does it prevent things like hair from getting stuck in it, but it also collects dust as well, all that nail dust that comes off. So you'll have to kind of weigh the pros and cons on whether or not you do want to keep that on. Professionals, I'm still here, and I'm going to tell you what I recommend. Let's talk about this. So if you're considering what your best options are for you out there in terms of nail grinders, personally, I have always found pet-focused Dremels to be a bit underwhelming. Usually the ones with the little paw prints and stuff like that. I also prefer cordless rather than corded for the reasons that I talked about earlier. Since they are quite heavy hitters, you need to exercise a lot more caution with their use. And the obvious reason is the limited motion of the cord is just not for me. Also, it has a tendency to weigh more, so it's harder on your wrist as well. And you do have to think about all the strenuous activities that you do day to day and how it can affect your body over time. Even if it's just a couple pounds, it really does make a difference. So here's what I use and absolutely love, and it is the Dremel brand cordless 7700-15. And it is the hobby version. It does have only 2 speeds, which is low, high, and then it also has the off button, obviously. So respectively, on low, the RPMs of that is 10,000, and on high, it's 20,000. It does have a removable 7.2 volt battery, which does charge via a wall port, which is super nice. You just have to plug it into the outlet. You do not need additional cords or anything like that. There's no USB involved, so it's super easy. I just keep it plugged into my wall. Now, it is extremely durable when it comes to housing. I know this because it's been kicked off my table a few times. And even though the battery does have additional weight, it's still quite lightweight overall. It did come with a variety of attachments, which is lovely, although there are some in there that I will never use, but that's okay too, because they came with extra bits and it's always nice to have them. And I can use this for other things as well, not that I have, but I have the option of it. Price-wise, it does clock in at a higher price point than the ones that we talked about earlier for obvious reasons. And it is currently listed on Amazon.com for $168.90 US. Now, for anyone who's still here and they're wondering how the heck do I use these grinders and you're just not comfortable with the process, well, I walk you through step by step in this video right here.